I want to start with a confession. There have been seasons in my life where I was surrounded by people at work, at church, online, in conversations, and still felt like alone. Not lonely in a way that like yourself by yourself on a Friday. Lonely in a deeper way. The way where you're in a room full of people and nobody actually like knows what's going on inside of you. Where you're performing fine and functioning normally, and nobody would ever guess that something was missing. That kind of lonely. And I think if you're honest, a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Welcome back to Assured and Brazen. I'm your host, Kevin Gertillis. If you're new here, I'm a Christian faith podcaster. And if you're not new, I'm glad you're back with me here again. And today I want to start with something a little different. Today we're talking about friendship, about loneliness, and about community. About what it actually means to be known by other people and why so many of us, even the ones who look connected, are living in a quiet isolation. This is one of the most urgent conversations that we need to have right now because we're living in a loneliness epidemic and most of our solutions are too shallow to touch the real problem. We're going to cover 5 things today. Why are so many people feeling alone in a crowd? What biblical community actually looks like versus what we've settled for. How to build and keep deep friendships as an adult. The difference between being around people and actually belonging. And what to do when friendships fade and seasons change. All of it, of course, grounded in scripture. None of it is easy. I want to tell you about a man named Jerome. And Jerome was kind of a person who was never short of friends, short of people around him. His phone's always blowing up. He's invited to different things. He showed up to church every Sunday. And he had hundreds, if not thousands, of people on LinkedIn and on his social media. Of course, he had people that liked him. Colleagues, acquaintances who knew his name, but by every measure, most people would say he's well respected, well connected. But Jerome hadn't had a conversation in more than 3 years where he actually told someone the truth about how he was actually doing, and every conversation stayed at the surface. The job, the plans, the highlights. Nobody knew about the anxiety that will come up at like the early mornings of the night. Nobody knew he was questioning things he believed his whole life. Nobody knew that he went home most nights to silence and sat in it until he was tired enough to sleep. He wasn't hiding because he was ashamed. He was hiding because he genuinely didn't know if anyone would stay if they saw the real picture. The real version of him that is struggling, doubting, a complicated version. Was someone people would actually choose to befriend. So one Sunday, a guy from his small church group asked him casually with some good eye contact, leaning in like I'm doing right here, and just genuinely wanting to know Jerome's mindset. So he asked him like, hey, Jerome, how you actually doing? And Jerome, of course, started saying the usual stuff. Hey, I'm good. And for some reason this Sunday, he kind of just let it all out. And he told the truth, of course, all of it. For the first time in years, and the guy didn't flinch. He didn't fix it. He didn't offer 5 steps to feeling better. He just said, I'm glad you told me, and I'm not going anywhere. Not only did this like comfort Jerome, right? Jerome told me later that was the moment he realized he'd been around people his whole life, but he felt like he hadn't been known. And being known changed everything for him. That is what today's about. Not just being around people, being known. If we don't understand the depth of the problem, we'll keep offering solutions that don't reach it. We are the most connected generation in human history. More communication tools, more social media platforms, more ways to reach people across any distance across the world. And yet, there was a study in 2023 done by the US General Surgeon, and it said that loneliness is a public health problem. The rates of loneliness have doubled since the 1980s. And it's kind of crazy to think, because when you think of how well connected we are, that's not the first issue that comes to mind. So it was reported half of adults reported measurable levels of loneliness, and health consequences are increasing. Chronic loneliness carries health risks comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We are more connected and more alone than we've ever been. At the same time, how is that possible? Because the connection and community are not the same thing. And we've been consuming connection while starving for community. Connection is transactional and horizontal. It's like the comment, the quick text, the catching up over coffee twice a year. It costs very little, and it gives very little. It keeps the surface relationships alive while the deeper need goes unmet. Community is conventional and directional. It moves somewhere. It involves people who know where you've been and where you're trying to go. It costs something: vulnerability, time, consistency, the willingness to be inconvenient and let others be inconvenient to you. And it gives something that connection never can: the experience of being genuinely known and genuinely chosen. The church was designed to be a solution to this. In Acts chapter 2, from 42 to 47, describes the early church, and it's one of the most countercultural pictures of community in human history. They devoted themselves to the apostles, teaching and fellowship, to breaking bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe and many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day, they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes. They ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Every day in each other's homes, sharing everything and genuinely glad. That's not like a small group that meets twice a month and sends a group text on birthdays. That is something fundamentally different from what most of us experience as church community. And before you think that was a different era, that it was a unique season, I want to push back a little bit, because what that community had was not a first century cultural advantage. What they had was a theology of togetherness, a belief rooted in active and costly, that they were not designed to be alone, not this alone anyway, and neither are you. So why are so many Christians, people who belong to communities, who attend churches, who have small groups and Bible studies, and Sunday friendships, still experiencing loneliness? Two reasons. We've confused attendance with belonging. Showing up in the same place every week Showing up in the same place every week is not community. It's proximity. Belonging requires something more. The experience of being missed when you're gone. The knowledge that people know enough about your real life to actually care about it. We've kept the vulnerable parts private. Most church community operates at a level of sharing that is just below the threshold of actual vulnerability. I'll tell you something. People share prayer requests that are real but safe. They talk about struggles in past tense like they've been resolved. But the raw present tense, I don't know about how this is going to end version of their lives, stays locked away. And so community never gets deep enough to be genuinely healing. We've let busyness make depth impossible. Real friendship takes time, unhurried, undistracted time. And we have structured our lives in a way that makes that almost impossible. Everyone's busy, every calendar is full, and so community gets scheduled into the margins, the leftovers, if you will, of our time, rather than the priority of it. We've moved too much. Geographic mobility, changed cities for jobs, for opportunity, for relationships, has made the long-term accumulated depth of friendship harder to sustain. And starting over in a new city, trying to build friendships from scratch, as an adult, is one of the loneliest experiences a person can have. Jerome knew all of this intellectually, I'm sure. He'd been in a church his whole life, but knowing he hadn't helped him until someone sat across from him and actually asked, what does biblical community actually look like? If we go to Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9 to 12, because this passage is the most practical that we can apply to friendship. It says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. 2 is always better than 1. Not because it's more fun, but because it's more enjoyable. Because life is hard, and the person who walks through hard things alone is at a disadvantage. Falls happen, cold comes, enemies pop up out of nowhere, and in every case, the person with someone besides them is better equipped to survive it. Biblical community is not primarily about enjoyment. It's about mutual strength. It is people who are committed to helping each other get back up, to keep each other warm in cold seasons, or to defend each other when things get hard. That is the fundamentally different vision than the casual, optional, when it suits us version of friendship most of us are experiencing. If we go to Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born from a time of adversity. At all times, born for adversity. Real friendship is not fair weather. It's not the relationship that flourishes when life is good and disappears when life is hard. Biblical friendship, it costs the most. And then there's David and Jonathan. If you go to 1 Samuel 18, one of the strongest relationships, I would say, in the Bible. Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. One in spirit, this is a depth of friendship that goes beyond preference and personality. Jonathan, the king's son, the heir to the throne, and the one with everything to lose, chose David. Not because David could give him anything, not because the relationship was convenient or politically advantageous. Choosing David cost Jonathan everything. His father's love, his claim to the throne, and eventually his life. And yet he chose David because the real friendship is a choice, made repeatedly at cost over time. If we go to John 15:13, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one of his friends. Jesus said this about friendship, not about romantic love, not about family, about friends. The greatest love, laying down of a life, is what genuine friendship requires. So, what are the marks of biblical community in practice? We have consistency. It shows up regardless of the season that you're in, not just when it's easy or enjoyable. Proverbs says a friend loves at all times. Not sometimes, not most times, all times. Honesty. Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a friend can be trusted. Biblical community tells the truth. It doesn't just affirm. It also challenges, corrects, and names things that need to be named. The friend who only ever tells you what you want to hear is not a biblical friend. They're a mirror, and that's being angled to make you look good. Vulnerability. You can't know without being seen. And being seen requires the courage to show the parts of you that you're not sure people will stay for. Jerome's breakthrough came the moment he told the truth. That's not a coincidence. Biblical community is built on truth telling, the kind that says, here is who I actually am, and waits to see if the other person stays. Sacrifice. Real friendship costs something: time, energy, inconvenience, money, presence. The friendship that never costs you anything is probably not deep enough to hold you when things get hard. Intentionality. Deep friendships don't happen by accident in adulthood. They require decision, they require effort. And if we go back to Acts 2, it says they devoted themselves. The word implies active, sustained, deliberate commitment. You have to choose community. You have to protect it. You have to show up even when you don't feel like. So we know what biblical community looks like. The hard question now is how? Because building deep friendships as an adult is one of the more difficult things you have to navigate. When you're young, proximity and repetition did the work for us. You saw the same people every day at school. Your friendships happened almost instantaneously through shared experience and shared time. But as adults, those automatic structures kind of disappear. And most people never develop the intentional skills to replace them. So here's what it actually takes: start with proximity, but don't stop there. You cannot build deep friendships with people we never see. The first step is pretty simple: Put yourself in a space where repeated low pressure contact with the same people is possible. Any small group, whether that's being a regular volunteer or being part of a sports team, a class, a church, not every person in that space will become a deep friend, but deep friendships cannot start without proximity. Go first. This is one of the most, this is the one most people avoid because being first is vulnerable. It means being the one who suggests the coffee, who sends the text, who invites, who shares something real before the other person has committed to doing the same. Doing Going first carries the risk of being rejected or not matched. But someone has to go first, and waiting for the other person to do it means waiting forever. Be the one who makes the first move. Move the conversation below the surface intentionally. Most adult friendships stall at the level of circumstances, jobs, kids, plans, opinions. To go deeper, someone has to ask a deeper question. How are you really doing? What's the hardest part of your life right now? What are you most afraid of? These are questions that feel unusual in casual conversation, which is exactly why they're so powerful. When someone asks them, they signal, I want to know you, not just about you. Invest time that isn't scheduled around an activity. Activity based friendships, gym partners, work colleagues, sports teammates, keeps relationships at a functional level. Deep friendship requires unstructured time, time where nothing is happening except two people being present with each other. That is increasingly rare and increasingly precious. Protect it. Reciprocate vulnerability. When someone shares something real with you, match it, not with advice, not with a similar story that redirects attention to you. Match it with something, match it with presence first. Thank you for telling me that. And then, with your own honesty, when the moment is right, vulnerability is a language. When someone speaks to you, keeping it, when someone speaks to you, speak it back. Be consistent over a long time. Deep friendship is not built in a single profound conversation. It's built in 1,000 ordinary ones. The text that says, I was thinking about you today, the showing up to the thing they invited you to, even when you're tired, the remembering of the thing they mentioned 3 weeks ago and asking how it went. Consistency, consistency over time is the substance of deep friendship. Address conflict, address conflict quickly. Nothing kills developing friendship faster than unaddressed tension. The misunderstanding that never got cleared up. The thing that was said that neither person acknowledged. Real friendship can hold conflict, but only if both people are willing to name it and work through it. Don't let small things calcify into walls. Jerome started doing something after this breakthrough moment that he experienced in that small group. Every week, he sent one text to one person in his life. Not a group text, not a forward, just a direct personal message to one person saying something specific and true. I was praying for you today, and I just wanted you to know I've been thinking about what you said last month. And I wanted to check in. Or something like, I'm proud of you for what you've been for what you're walking through. Something like, I'm proud of you for what you've been walking through. He told me it felt awkward at first, like he was trying too hard. But within 6 months, three of those people had become friends he could call at 2 a.m. Not because he'd done anything drastic or dramatic, but because he's been consistently, specifically present. That's how it's built. I want to stay here for a moment because this distinction is the heart of why so many people still feel lonely inside communities that should be helping. And being around people and actually belonging are not the same. Being around people means you are physically present in the same space. You attend the same events, you know the same names. You have you have enough shared names. You have enough shared content to make small talk for natural feeling. You're not alone technically, but you're not belonging. Belonging is something completely different. Belonging is the experience of being genuinely wanted, not just tolerated, not just included, by default because you showed up, but actually wanted. Missed when you're absent, sought out, known well enough that your presence changes the room and your absence is noticed. Belonging is the experience of knowing that even if you stopped performing, stopped being funny, interesting, useful, agreeable, that people would still choose you, that you are valued for who you are, not for what you contribute. Most people have never experienced this, and many people have stopped believing it's possible. The early church in Acts 2 was categorized by belonging, not just attendance. They were together every day in each other's lives, homes, eating together, sharing resources. They weren't performing community, they were living it. The difference between a church that produces belonging and a church that produces attendance is a culture of genuine welcome and genuine knowing. It is the difference between a community where people say, good to see you, and one where people say, I noticed you weren't here last week. Is everything okay? So, how do you move from being around people to actually belonging? Especially if you're in a community where that hasn't quite gotten there yet. Name what you need to yourself first, of course. Most people who are lonely in community have never articulated, even privately, what they're missing. Get specific. Is it being known, being pursued, having someone to call in a crisis? Maybe it's being challenged. Either way, you have to name it because you can't move forward towards something you haven't defined. Let people see a real need. This is the hardest thing we have to face for ourselves. Belonging belongs to the moment. Belonging begins the moment you let someone help you with something real, not the service request. Can you pick me up? But the real ones. I'm struggling and I don't know what to do. I need someone to pray for me, with me right now. I don't want to be alone with this. The moment you let your guard down enough to have real need in front of someone, anyone, and they meet it, belonging starts. Stay long enough. Belonging takes time. You can't rush it. You can't manufacture it in a few weeks of just showing up. It grows slowly through accumulated shared experiences, like we mentioned earlier. The people who say, I've been going to this church for 6 months and I still don't feel like I belong, are usually right, because 6 months is often not long enough. Stay, keep showing up. Let time do what only time can do. Be the belonging you want to experience. If you want to be noticed, notice people. If you want to be pursued, pursue people. If you want someone to ask you how you're doing, ask someone else first. The culture of belonging is created by people who decide to create it, who go first, who go deeper, who stay longer. Jerome found belonging not by waiting for the community to give it to him, but by becoming the kind of friend he wanted to have. He started going first. He started asking the deeper questions. He started staying after church instead of leaving immediately. And slowly, but not quickly, not dramatically, he became someone who belonged because he started belonging to the others first. I want to close the main content of this episode with something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough in church. The grief of friendship at the end, or the fade, I guess. Because they do, even good ones, even biblical ones, even the ones that felt like they would last forever. People move, seasons change, life goes in different directions all the time. Someone might get married and the dynamics just suddenly shift, right? Someone has children and now their availability disappears. Someone changes, or maybe you change. And the connection that was once effortless starts to feel like work. And then one day you realize you haven't spoken in 6 months, and then a year, and neither of you have reached out. And then there's a grief in that, a real legitimate grief that the church hasn't given permission to feel. Because we're so committed to the idea that Christian community is supposed to last forever. We haven't built any language for when it doesn't. Even David and Jonathan, the deepest friendship in the Old Testament, was separated by a circumstance, a political danger, and ultimately a death. Even the early church community, even the early church community described in Acts, scattered through persecution, through mission, through the expansion of the gospel into the world. Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane felt the sting of his closest friends falling asleep in his most desperate hour. Friendships are not failures because they change. People are not failures because seasons do what seasons do. So, how do you grieve a friendship that has faded without bitterness? I think you have to acknowledge the loss honestly. Don't minimize, we just drifted apart. It's often a way of avoiding the fact that something mattered to you is gone. Let it matter. Let yourself feel the loss. That's not weakness. It's an appropriate response to something that was real. You have to distinguish between seasons and severance. Not every friendship that fades is over. Some are in a dormant season. Both people could be busy, both people could be in different places, but the roots are still there. These friendships can be picked back up with a single honest conversation. I miss you. I know how things have been different. Can we reconnect? Don't write off a friendship in a dormant season as if it's dead. Release without resentment. When a friendship genuinely has run its course, when you've tried to connect and it hasn't come back to life, The work is to realize it without letting it curdle into bitterness. This person has a gift for a season. The season ended. The gift was real. Let gratitude for what it was coexist with grief for what it is no longer. Let God replenish. If we go to Ecclesiastes 4, it talks about the cord of 3 strands. But it doesn't say it's always the same 3 people. Different seasons bring different companions. And the friend you need in your 20s is not always the same friend you need in your 30s and 40s. God is not finished building your community. Even the specific chapters of it close. Don't let past loss close you off to future depth. This is the long-term danger of unprocessed friendship grief. It teaches you subtly that depth isn't worth the risk. That investment leads to loss, and that it's safer to keep things surface level so it doesn't hurt even when they change. That's a lie. It leads to exactly the loneliness we started this episode talking about. Jerome lost a close friendship in his mid-30s. A falling out that never fully healed. For a long time, it made him cautious, less willing to go deep, less willing to invest, and less willing to risk. And it contributed to the 3 years of surface level living. That, of course, preceded his breakthrough that he had. When he finally processed the grief, that lost friendship with a counselor, with God, and with eventually a new friend who had earned his trust, something unlocked. He stopped protecting himself from depth. He started going first again. The loss had been real. The grief was real. And the healing, slow, not very straight, incomplete in some ways, but it was still real. Let's bring these 5 topics back together again, because it's been a long conversation, and I want you to walk away with something clear and actionable. The loneliness epidemic is real, and the church is supposed to be the answer. But only if it stops confusing attendance with belonging and connection with community. We were made for depth. Don't settle for less. Biblical community is costly, it's consistent and vulnerable and honest. It looks like Acts 2. It looks like David and Jonathan. It looks like the cord of 3 strands that doesn't break when things get hard. It's not optional for the Christian life. It's essential. Building deep friendship as an adult requires intention. Go first. Move below the surface. Invest unhurried time. Be consistent over the long haul. Reciprocate the vulnerability. Address the conflict quickly. It doesn't happen by accident, it happens by decision. Belonging is different from being around people. You can be in a room full of people and still feel alone. Belonging is being known, wanted, and chosen. And it begins the moment you let someone see a real need and let them meet it. Friendship grief is real, and it deserves to be honored. Not every friendship lasts forever. Some are for seasons. Release them without bitterness. Stay open to new community. God is building around you, even as old chapters close. And underneath it all, you were not designed for isolation. In Genesis 2:18, the first thing God declared, not good, was not sin, not suffering, not death. It was aloneness. It is not good for man to be alone. Before the fall, before everything went wrong, God looked at a human being in a perfect world and said, this person needs someone. So do you. And so does the person sitting across from you, or 2 seats down in church, or on the other end of a text you haven't sent yet. Be the friend. Build the community. Stay for the belonging. I want to close with Jerome because the story doesn't end with the breakthrough moment in a small group. After that evening, the man who asked him, "How are you actually doing?" became one of his closest friends. They met every other week for coffee. No agenda, just casual conversation. They prayed for each other. They called each other out when something was off. They showed up for each other's hard seasons with consistency that both of them had stopped believing was possible. Jerome told me recently, I used to think I wasn't someone who just didn't need a lot of deep connection, that I was built for independence. The truth was, I was just scared, and the scariest thing I ever did was tell the truth to one person. And that one person became the door for everything else. One person, one honest conversation, one moment of going first. That's how it starts. You don't need to overhaul your entire social life. You don't need to find deep friendships by next month. You just need to go first with one person. Ask the real question. Tell the real thing. Stay when it gets vulnerable. You were made to be known, not just followed, not just liked, not just connected to. No, go find your people and let them find you. So that's it for Assured and Brazen, the known episode. If this episode describes something you've been feeling but couldn't name, I want you to do one thing this week. Send one message to one person, not a group text, one person. Something real, something specific. Something that says, I see you, I'm thinking about you, I want to go deeper. Just one person this week. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Leave a review if you haven't. It genuinely helps more people find the show. And subscribe if you don't want to miss out on what's coming next. Stay assured, stay brazen. I'm out. Peace.